So let's see. The next one is let's talk Taíno 18. What Taíno and ni Taíno really meant. Oh, okay. Let's find out. Oh, but before we do, right? Before we do, hold on one. Let's continue going down. Let's continue going down this Taíno warriors history, and let's learn more about them. So, like I said, we're gonna talk about this video is called "Let's Talk Taíno 18." What Taíno and ni Taíno really meant. So, as you can see, they say that the Puerto Rican slang is actually words that they have from the actual Taíno language. I don't know how much that is true, but we're going to continue to keep on.
Mabrika, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Taíno. I'm your host, Priscilla Colon, co-founder and creative here at Casarito, where our mission is to promote the Taíno language and culture. So today I want to talk about perspective. That is the way that you see the world influenced by your past experiences? And how did this influence how we see Taínos today? So I'll give you an example of what I mean. If I say to you, carpenter, what kind of person do you see in your mind? Well,
Somebody
you're like most people in the US, you probably didn't think of a woman. Why? Because we live in a patriarchal society.
Well, we're in 2024. What year is it? Oh, 3 years. Well, even 3 years ago, women were already starting to, have trades and work, in carpentry, electricity, plumbing, and all that. So, okay, but let's continue. Let's listen.
Or at least our roots are in patriarchy. And of course, this perspective can actually skew reality. So what happened when the Spaniards met the Taínos? The Taínos and the Spaniards had very different perspectives. They came from different cultures.
Obviously.
So what the Spanish heard wasn't always exactly what the Taínos meant. So we're going to take a look at a few words today. So, quick background on the Spaniards. We know that they came from a patriarchal society, where the king was at the very top, followed by noblemen, and then everyone else was a peasant, a worker. So when they came to the Americas, this is what they expected. Besides the word cacique, the Spanish also heard words such as
cacique,
naboria, which means worker or servant,
naboria,
taíno, and taíno. So based on these words and based on their perspective that they already brought with them, the Spanish assumed that cacique was a king, that ni taíno were noblemen, and that naboria were the peasants, everyone else.
Oh, shit.
And they assumed that all of the natives they were meeting were calling themselves taínos because that was like their name for each other. So let's take a look at cacique, which we've...
So basically, what if... Wait a minute. Because I do know that it starts off with the Arawaks. What if the Spaniards decided to sit here and just say, fuck it, let's just call them Taínos because they heard them say Taínos? What if the Arawaks never stopped existing? Like, you know how they say that the Taínos went extinct, right? Because of how, what happened with Ponce de Leon and Christopher Columbus, right? Now the people in Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, Cuba, and all that, they're mixed with the Spaniards, right? So apparently that's why the Taínos in Puerto Rico cannot claim to be, indigenous, right? And can't claim their land because apparently, we're mixed breeds, right? But it gets you to think. So what if they stopped saying Arawak and started using Taíno? Am I connecting the dots? What if we're not Taínos and we're still, our ancestors were Arawaks the whole time? I'm trying to figure it out.
Talked about before. We know that cacique means chief, and it is not a king or a governor. The chief's job was really to assign the task, make sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to, and to make sure that everyone got the food that they needed. He was also a spiritual or religious leader. He would go into trances and ask this great spirit whether they should go to war or maybe form an alliance, etc. And as you've learned before, a Taíno cacique could be male or female. There were at least 4 different female cacique when the Spanish first came. And last but not least, in my research, I found that not every village had a cacique. Some villages were just led by a group of elders. So,
different from what we was told.
So we can tell that the Spanish perspective was not correct when it came to cacique or the leadership of Taínos. How about with the words Taíno and ni Taíno? The Spanish heard these words on a couple of occasions. Once they were on a ship nearing an island and the women came out calling and waving Taíno. The second occasion, there were a group of Taíno men pointing spears and arrows at the Spanish, obviously angry and agitated and saying Taíno, ni Taíno, almost.
So in the Arawak language, what would Taíno and ni Taíno mean? And what would cacique? I mean, we know what it means, chief, right? But what would Taíno and ni Taíno mean? If the Spaniards thought that because they heard them saying Taíno and ni Taíno that it meant certain things, what it meant, whatever they thought that it meant. What did the word Taíno and ni Taíno mean in the Arawak language, in the Arawak tongue? See, and that's why I want to connect more with the Jamaican, heritage, with the Haitian heritage, and with the African heritage, because I know that they'll know more about the Arabic. I know a lot of them don't know about the Taíno, but I think they should. I mean, hey, like I said, I'm still learning, and I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to bash nobody, man. I would love to hear people's comments, people's perspectives, right? So if you're from Puerto Rico, Santo Domingo, Cuba, right, Haiti, Jamaica, Africa, especially Jamaica, right? Let us show you know what you know about the Taíno heritage or the Arabic heritage. I would love to learn more.
As if to say, identify yourself. Recently, linguists decided to look at the origins of the words Taíno and ni Taíno to figure out if their original meaning was correct. So we know from past videos that Taíno, based on its word parts, means good people. And that is exactly what the Spanish said that it meant. But during the research, the linguists tried to establish whether or not the word Thai meant good. We know that no at the very end is plural for humans. We hear it in the words Taíno and Locono, which literally means the people in Locono.
Oh shit, Locono is another word. I've heard it. I thought it meant crazy. Like they was trying to call somebody a loquito, Locono, something like that. Listen, I don't know. Now I'm learning.
But how about Thai? So first they looked at Arawak and sister languages to try to figure out the word good in all of them. As you can tell, there aren't a lot of similarities. The closest is probably Kalinago, which has Lao or Tao, similar to Thai, but it wasn't conclusive. Next, linguists looked at a translation of the Lord's Prayer, which was created in the 1800s. Now, I gotta say, the Lord's Prayer, Taínos were not Christians, so you know that was created by somebody who was. So in this translation of the Lord's Prayer, the person who wrote the translation...
We know they're not Christian, but they did pray to a god called Zemi, and I'm not sure what other gods. But I do know they pray to a god called Zemi. But that is crazy though, right? Because if they're not Christian, where does the word Lord come from?
Used a word Han to mean amen and to mean good in several instances. We know that Han means yes in Taíno, and Han is similar to son, which is used in another sister language. So it's still pretty inconclusive. So then we have to look at the word ni Taíno. So when we look at similar words to ni Taíno in the Arawak and sister languages, we find a nice surprise. Whether it is my relatives, family, there's even one that means son or friend. So
So she is looking into the Arawak language, right? Which leads back to my question, right? The Taínos allegedly come from the Arawaks. Are our ancestors really just Arawaks and not Taínos? Did the Spaniards mess up history so much that they got us thinking, that we're the Taíno tribe when in reality we're still Arawaks? Well, we're descendants from the Arawaks. Hey, maybe I'm tripping.
has to do with kinship. So ni Taíno is some sort of person related to you. So linguists' current assumptions
Ni
are that
Taíno.
ni Taíno could have meant water relatives because they see ni at the beginning, and it kind of makes sense to go from island to island saying, hey, ni Taíno, I'm one of your water relatives. I live on another island. So that's one theory. Another theory is that ni Taíno literally meant my relatives, because in some Arawakan languages, ni and nu is used at the beginning to mean my. But of course, in other Arawakan languages, ta and da is used at the beginning to mean me or my, such as duck, right? Yet another theory is that ni Taíno, if you look at nita at the very beginning, could have meant my blood, because the word hita is blood. So there are three different theories about what the actual word ni Taíno meant. But it definitely did not mean nobleman. So could Taíno mean good people and family? Yeah, of course it could. It could have many different meanings, layers of meaning, depending on how it was used. So let's take a look at a word that you may be familiar with if you speak Spanish. The word is bonito. And nowadays it's used to mean cute, pretty.
Yeah.
But the original meaning of the word was not that. Let's take a look at the word parts. So bonito has two word parts. Bon, which is a short form of bueno, which means good. And ito, which is a little part at the end, a suffix that is added to mean little. So,
yo, man, I ain't gonna get past the part where the whole time growing up, I thought that I was speaking slang, Puerto Rican slang, like Spanish slang. The whole time it seems that we have been speaking our native language, and they've been telling us that, the words that we say, in Spanish are slang, when in reality is our native tongue. And if we look up, the right words, we can learn how to actually, speak in our native tongue. It might sound weird, but now that I'm sitting here thinking about it like that, they really played the shit out of us. Arranque y coge vuelo. I'm thinking.
The original meaning of bonito was a little good. And it's actually the diminutive form of good. So you have buenísimo, which is great, bueno, which is good, and bonito, little good. Wow. Of course, we don't use it like that every day. We now mean cute or pretty. So as you can see, many words.
I did not know that. So the whole time.
Words, depending on the word parts, have one meaning, and then in common use have a different meaning. They evolve. So the lesson for today is, let's think about perspective when we're studying languages, especially if it has been seen through the filter of the colonizers, for example. We know that Taíno probably meant good people and probably closer to family. Ni Taíno is probably closer to my family, my relatives. And Naboria, we know, are workers. But that makes sense because everyone had a job to do in Taíno society. It does mean that Taíno society was not a hierarchical society, just like the Spanish.
I'm just trying to figure out how the heck did y'all find out about the Arawak language? And I've been searching. Like, do I have to filter my search on something? Like, how do I get to, find out to learn how to speak Arawak? Because it seems like there's more than one type of Arawak language. If I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm tripping. But I want to learn it. I did not know that the slang language that the Puerto Ricans were speaking were a part of the Arawak language. Oh, wait. I gotta find out what those cachete and all that stuff mean in Jamaica and Haiti and Africa and all that. For the ones that know how to speak the Arawak language.
One of the coolest things I've learned doing this research is just how the Taínos saw themselves as family. So whether you were on the island of Haiti, Quisqueya,
Haiti
on
too?
Boriquén, on Cubanacan, on Yamayeca, we were all family. And that is a beautiful message. So thank you again for subscribing to this channel. I know that together we can bring back Taíno.
All right, make sure y'all go, go check out Casa Arrioto. Right? I'm gonna subscribe. This was 3 years ago. I don't know if she got new videos, but I'm gonna go check out. But let's move on to the next one.